This is Eric Hanselman, Chief Analyst for 451 Research here at Interop. One of the things we've noticed about the transition to cloud is a significant pullback from the enthusiasm for private cloud. A lot of enterprises expected that the move to private cloud would be a good first step. They went out, they either bought VCD licenses, stood up OpenStack, but got to a point at which they understood that in fact building big scalable infrastructures is a lot harder than it looks, especially when you start thinking about the challenges of taking existing operational procedures for IT service management and getting them into a cloudy world. That's a tough step. One of the things we've noticed is that if we take a look at our clients' 2-year projections and from the study data, what we're seeing is organizations looking at private cloud hosted by others, where they've got the capability to be able to shed some of the operational constraints, shed some of the issues around capital and budget growth, and still take advantage of that isolation. When you see large SaaS players, the Salesforces of the world, starting to look at private instances, you can tell that there's a significant shift to a concern where private starts to make a lot of sense as long as you don't have to put up with the headache of operating it.
What do you see as the result of the pullback from private cloud? Are there winners and losers in that, or how are companies approaching that?
Well, what's happening is as this shift happens, the standalone implementation of private cloud, all those folks are doing sort of the on-prem packaged implementations. A lot of the tire kicking that's been going on is really starting to slow down. The winners in this sort of environment are those that typically service providers that are looking at providing cloud infrastructure and can pick up some of that work, can start to do the things that enterprises are having trouble with and are struggling with, and start to provide those transitional services of helping your average enterprise actually get applications into a private setting. That transition to any kind of cloud is tough. And that's something that their organizational aspects, their personnel aspects, there are a lot of pieces that you've got to address, even beyond some of the things that are concerning, like the governmental regulatory compliance issues around data security, data locality. Those are big steps, but the folks who are profiting in this space are the partners that can help enterprises make those steps.
So what about the competition for mindshare among the larger players, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google, IBM?
Well, the larger players in the cloud space are really battling for mindshare. If you look at the approaches, they've all got their own individual advantages. Amazon AWS, far and away the market leader in terms of capabilities, in terms of total installed base, in terms of revenue. But if you look at the challengers that are trying to take a piece of that, they're all trying to differentiate themselves in slightly different ways. And some of them are approaching things that they're expecting that Amazon's not going to be able to pick up. IBM SoftLayer, for example. You've got a lot of flexibility in terms of what you're actually deploying. The ability to be able to actually spin up hardware can make a difference if that's really an important factor. Getting physical access to, or getting physical systems to deploy isn't something that Amazon has tackled with AWS. It is something, though, that some of the other players, the Rackspaces of the world, are coming from that managed services space, already have a significant play in. It's something where for each of these, they're trying to tailor the capabilities they've got to specific enterprise requirements. The challenge in making the transition for an enterprise is figuring out which of these capabilities work best. And in many cases, it's not a choice of any one. It's going to be how do you work through the process of having multiple execution venues on which you can host your infrastructure. That's the larger challenge. How do you manage it? How do you integrate it? How do you leverage each of these platforms to handle each of the needs that exist within your organization?